What up everyone, it's your man XMan87 here, bringing you another top 10 video, and what I have for you today is one of my subcategories for Legends that I like to do for fun, and we're going to be looking at my top 10 favorite Marvel Legends in other media, which means the figures outside of the comic books based on their genre from a mixture of animation, video games, live action TV series, and MCU movies. Same like I did last year, my top 10 comic list is already on the channel, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already. I break these top 10s in different categories as there's just way too many legends to choose from, and this way I get to show more figures some more love. As always, don't take it personal if you don't see one of your favorites on my list, because I don't make your list. I make my own from my personal favorites of the figures I had the utmost fun with. Keywords in the title, my favorite. There's no wrong way in doing it, so before I get into everything, if you could please leave a thumbs up like rating on the video, it'll help show your support for my channel and I greatly appreciate it. And now let's dive into some honorable mentions. For my honorable mentions, I have a few ones that stood out to me, such as the Disney Plus Wave Classic Loki TV series figure. The Richard E. Grant likeness is superb. Good choice of hands with one of them having effects keyed into the sculpt. Beautiful details. Defender Strange I picked up for a good price on clearance. I mainly picked this up for the portal effect because of the ACBA photographer in me. I like Peter Parker a lot. Some good accessories, and it's great to have more civilian outfits in the line. The toy TV series SpiderMan I think gets unnecessary hate. They nailed the aesthetics and just wished he had trigger hands to have him hold a rifle. Oh, and butterfly joints. Mighty Thor is one of the year's best female figures for the Legends line. Great sculpt and likeness. Winter Soldier is a good update with more grounded accessories this time around. Just needed the pinless treatment. Kate Bishop because finally some butterfly joints on a female figure. I genuinely like the Into the Spider-Verse Spider-Man Noir. Something about being in all black makes him look so tough. Looks great next to the other Spider-Verse movie figures. Atuma is an underrated bath and has a great sculpt with plenty of intricate details. My top honorable mention will be crowned at the halfway mark of the countdown. Now with that said, let's get ready to count down! At the number 10 spot is the Disney Plus SheHulk. Despite how you may feel about the show, it's not about the show here, it's about the figure, so I know how to detach my emotions from a show when judging a figure, and this SheHulk is really well done. The painting on her attire has lots of details going on and brings out the sculpture. The entire sculpt is great and her scale is a great size as well. Good articulation and the head sculpt is the main attraction for me. An alt head was needed though. However, she's beautiful and the green skin tone I'd say is screen accurate. A job well done. At the number 9 spot, we have the Disney Plus Moon Knight. This figure is fully sculpted top to bottom. I don't think there is one area that's not sculpted on this figure. I like the texture on the suit and the wraps have been placed perfectly on the sculpt. Some neat paint touches scattered throughout. The hood and cape looks great together. I think I'll need to invest in a wired fabric cape for him because I want to get some dynamic poses out of him. His articulation is decent, but they limit the torso area. A ball-jointed waist below the torso swivel was needed. Regardless, he was still fun to pose, and that's what's important for a Moon Knight figure. Number 8, Infinity Ultron. Surprisingly, this figure made it on my list as it grew on me. I remember when this was revealed on display at San Diego Comic-Con, it looked god-awful with that silver plastic looking so damn cheap. It could have been one that wasn't final because what I have in hand here looks completely different. The silver plastic molding looks much better, which I'm pleased, but I still feel for a bath, he should have been painted in a metallic silver. Can't deny that this has such a lovely sculpt all around. The gold is painted beautifully along with the infinity stones, so that helps to bring out those important highlights. I thought he was severely undersized as he should be the same size as the Watcher from that final battle, but then you can add the what if Amazon exclusive Killmonger head onto this figure, which adds more replay value to the figure. That won me over, so now I understand why they went this route. The lance accessory, the articulation, and the main head sculpt are all adequately executed. I would have loved to have seen an alt head with Vision's face exposed. I ended up with a newfound affinity for this Infinity Ultron, a pretty solid bath. Coming in at number 7, Namor. This figure just came out so good with everything being beautiful about it. I love the Talocan wardrobe paying homage to its Mayan Aztec roots from his accoutrement, the bracelets, all the way down to his winged ankles. I found so much to be impressed by this figure. Decent amount of accessories. Although I would have loved an alternate head with the headdress the most, that would have been my main display choice, but I'm sure they'll make us pay extra for just that head one of these days. I think what I like most about this, besides everything else I just mentioned, is the articulation. I had a ton of fun switching up the posing to emulate flight, swimming, and grounded poses. He was my favorite character in the Black Panther movie, and probably my favorite in this Black Panther wave. Coming in at number 6, X-Men The Animated Series Morph. Another figure that was 20 years in the making, and I couldn't be more happy. Well, almost. I want one without cell shading so I can put one to fit with my mainline X-Men, because I'm not a fan of how they do their cell shading. So I might have to try and pull off what Robo did by removing the cell shading for now. Cell shading aside, I think he came out great being on the new X-Men body they built for him, Cyclops, and the 275 team. He's got that older bomber jacket, which they should have given him double jointed pinless elbows like the Peter B. Parker sleeves. You get some accessories, but I will say that I still do not like that regular Morph head. I gave it a chance to grow on me, but it just didn't. Evil Morph is the way to go for me on display. Regardless of your opinion on the character, as a huge X-Men The Animated Series fan, this is a must-have in the collection. And for my top honorable mention, X-Men Animated Series Apocalypse takes top honors. I know it's under the Retro Wave banner, but come on, can't fool me, as this is technically the 90s X-Men Animated Series colors. A smart way to put him out since he couldn't fit in those VHS boxes. I like that we get some newly sculpted parts like an entirely brand new torso, new layered pieces, good amount of accessories like this multi-arm cannon blaster with effects. It's good to have a new accessory for Apocalypse to add to his arsenal. The detailing on the head sculpt is spectacular, but unfortunately the rest of the body doesn't follow through with the painted face. They should have followed up with painting the blues in a metallic decal to give it a shiny armor reflection. At least there's no cell shading. I always wanted an Apocalypse in this deco, and he blends in beautifully with my comics or animated series figures. Either way, he looks boss. And now onto my top 5. Coming in at number 5 is the Armored Mark I SpiderMan. So if you paid attention to this design, you would know that this is not comic based at all. Instead, it's from the Spider-Man PS4 video game, which you can tell by the placements and gaps on certain areas of the armor, and it's all texturized. Therefore, I'm counting this as a Gamerverse. I find it funny that they just decided to sneak in a Gamerverse figure in a retro wave. Makes me think that wasn't the original plan. Anyways, the figure is just visually pleasing to look at, seeing how the black texturing accentuates the silver. The articulation has great maneuvering, and the accessories are acceptable, giving us extra hands along with 2 new web effects in the line. He just needed wall crawling hands. It's magnificently sculpted all around, and I'm happy to be getting newer Spider-Man modes lately. This was one of my top wanted spider suits on my wish list for Legends, and I'm extremely satisfied with how it came out. At the number 4 spot, we have Mr. Negative and the Inner Demons. This may be a cheat to some for having 2 figures in one spot, but these just go together since it's a villain with his henchmen. If you saw my Spider-Man wishlist video, you'd know that these came in at the number 2 spot, so you can tell how bad I wanted them. Mr. Negative is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, and happy he got to shine as the co-antagonist in Spider-Man PS4. Now he gets to shine in Marvel Legends form. It sucks that it's on an outdated body and not an updated pinless suit, but he still came out looking stellar. That head sculpt sells it all with the uncanny likeness to actor Stephen O. Young, who portrayed him in the game. Hope he gets to reprise his role if they introduce Mr. Negative into the MCU in a future Spider-Man film. I heard a rumor that Mr. Negative could appear in the Shang-Chi sequel, but there's no truth to that yet. The main highlight for me is the Inner Demon Gang Army Builder. You know army building is my shit, so I grabbed about 4 packs so far. It sucks to end up with multiple Mr. Negatives and not an Army Builder 2-pack, but my focus is not on that nor the price. The focus is on being one of my favorites I personally enjoyed the most. The Inner Demons are on the larger suited Logan movie body, and the accessories packed in this set steals the show. It's accessories galore here with some of the newer gun styles, gun effects, machetes, bats, and multiple heads to display 3 different Oni mask styles. It's everything I want in an army builder like this to include. Can't forget Mr. Negative 2, as he also introduces some new accessories like his double-edged Qian sword, paying homage to his Chinese roots, and even some new dope negative energy effects to place on his Qian and hands. Oh, and before I wrap this up, I forgot to mention that these heads can fit on the Happy Hogan body if you want a big brute enforcer. I wanted to show you how it looks here on display, as these heads are too big to fit on the smaller suited bodies. Hopefully they do another offer as an army builder pack and include a deluxe sized Inner Demon Brute Enforcer. Multiple options you have that features a ton of playability here, and it's my favorite Legends army builder of the year. At number 3, X-Men The Animated Series Cyclops. This Cyclops is the best Marvel Legends offer of the character ever. Cell shading aside, the new X-Men body captures his physique perfectly, which is just a modified version of the Vulcan body with the straps being keyed into the mold, so nothing gets loose, making it a lot easier to handle. Knowing how Hasbro rolls, it's a safe bet that we'll get a comic version without the cell shading very soon. It's done right being keyed into the mold, especially the Y strap on his chest being able to flow back and forth smoothly with the torso crunch. It's how it should be done and not a separate layered piece. Aesthetically, he's almost perfect. I say almost because the Vulcan glove cut is visible on his forearm and not smoothed out, which gives it such an ugly eyesore of a look. Also, problems on the left side of his visor being closed in from warping or not being cut correctly is something I've seen being reported around, as it happened to mine too. Accessory wise, he's got the extra hands to show for it, but no optic blast effects, which is something we're in dire need to have for this specific look. It's a great look. Does it rival the Mafex? Not yet, but give it some time for them to make some key corrections and we can be the judge of that later when the time comes. So still some opportunities for areas of improvement, but the fluidity in the posing is great, and again, best Legend Cyclops to date. The number 2 spot goes to the Khonshu Build-A-Figure. What a phenomenal piece to look at. This Bath is a big boy, measuring at about 8.5 inches tall, so he'll look imposing standing next to your other figures. Hasbro delivered on details here because it's seen throughout with this sort of grubby smeared wash it has going on. The details on the skull are decoratively grotesque that it looks like an actual bird's skull, making it insanely realistic. Like Moon Knight, the mummified wraps are intricately detailed within the pattern of the sculpt. Some nice gold paint apps applied, and I love the translucent neck to give the appeal of a floating head. Everything about this figure is executed to the max. His articulation is solid for his size. His crescent moon staff is also nicely sculpted with a few paint touches, and it's a decent size. I think this is one of those few movie figures like the Cole Obsidian Bath that can blend in with your comic figures. This is my second favorite Bath of the year, and I used to think that the movie Venom was the best movie figure ever made, but now I think this Khonshu Bath might take the cake. And at the number 1 spot, it is no surprise, Spider-Man and his amazing friend SpiderMan. Give me great Spider-Man figures consistently, and I'm always going to be one happy Marvel Legends collector. The Amazing Fantasy Buck is my new favorite Spider-Man mold. It just does it for me. We all know this can articulate fluidly, so I want to focus on other aspects of the figure. The proportions on this new young adult body is perfect. The smooth pinless aesthetics corrects the inner arms by not having the colored pins poking out. Speaking of color, this figure specifically has the best red and blue color contrast out of any Legends classic Spider-Man. You can feel free and insert the animated series Spider-Man here if you want, but the cell shading isn't accurate to the show. But regardless, I'm going with this solid red and blue, as it's just like having a comic rendition of the character. Only downside is the gaps in the arms, whereas the animated series one doesn't have that. Wish they didn't reuse those Amazing Fantasy arms here, but I can cover it up with the web glider cape that came with that figure. Even adding the extra hands from that Spider-Man adds more fun to this. An extra head style would have been appreciated so you don't constantly have a squinty face. So I showed on my Instagram that you can swap the animated series head on this to display a different expression, or have an animated series version without the cell shading. And honestly, this is my favorite display and may be my go-to display. The reds go together. The mix and matching is what I have the most fun with, and growing up watching Spider-Man and his amazing friends and the 90s animated series cartoons, this one is what I'm most personally attached to and means the most to me. This figure made my top 20 best of 20 years for Marvel Legends, as I'm hailing it the greatest Marvel Legends Spider-Man figure of all time. And now I kick it back to you. What was your favorite figure from another medium outside of comics? What is your top 10 list for this subcategory? Comment below, let me know, we'll chat about it. Thanks for watching another top 10 video. Please follow me on Instagram if you haven't already at xmanny87. Hit the notification bell so you always know when my latest videos are up. Share and subscribe if you're new. See you on the next video. Peace.